Welcome, Fright Night Vault listeners. Draw closer, but don't linger too long in the dark. Tonight's tale began in an ordinary home, and with something inside it that remembered how to breathe. If you're alone right now, you may want to change that. Subscribe to the vault and stay close. You'll want someone beside you when the breathing starts. Mara Ellison taught first-period art at Dunbridge High, a red brick school that smelled of chalk and radiator dust. Her husband, Theo, worked nights as a municipal code inspector, the kind sent to crawl under basements and listen for hollow pipes. Their two kids, Riley and June, lived by the clock. Cereal at 7:10, bus at 7:38. Hugs at the door, avoiding the warped board that popped near the landing. They lived in a narrow colonial on Whitaker Street, the kind with a porch rail too low for comfort and a yard that sloped toward dark spruce. Neighbors said the wind off the New Hampshire hills put a good chill in the lungs come October. Mara thought the air sometimes moved differently inside, like something else was sharing it. On the first Monday of the month, she told Theo she was late. They stood in the bathroom, more surprised by the quiet than the pink bar on the test. "We weren't trying," he said, smiling the way people do when they're uncertain. "We'll figure it out," he added, and kissed her forehead. Her old college friend, Dr. Lena Klein, confirmed the pregnancy. "You're measuring about 12 weeks, Lena said. Mara blinked. "That's impossible. Bodies tell time better than calendars," Lena answered gently. "Everything else looks perfect." That night, Mara dreamed of breathing she couldn't match, slow, deliberate, just beside her ear. When she woke, the room was still. The heater hadn't kicked on, yet the air pulsed with a faint rhythm, as if someone had exhaled into the drywall. By the week's end, small things shifted. The radio switched stations mid-song. The hallway mirror fogged, though no one had showered. Riley muttered about a whistle under his bed. June pointed at the corner of her room and whispered, "It's copying me." Theo blamed drafts. "Old ducts," he said, wiping dust from his hands. "I'll get the system checked." At a neighbor's birthday party, the smell of frosting turned metallic in Mara's mouth. She barely reached the sink before vomiting. The nurse hosting the party asked if she needed water. Mara waved her off, trembling. When she looked in the mirror, she swore she saw breath cloud the glass from behind her shoulder. Lena scheduled another appointment. "Heartbeat strong," she said, eyes narrowing at the monitor. "Growth is brisk." Brisk? Not alarming, just fast. Driving home, Mara noticed a fogged print on the passenger window, 2 ovals and a short line like a face drawn by a child. She wiped it away, exhaled to test it, and laughed at her own nerves. But when she glanced again, the glass had fogged from outside. That night, while Theo worked late, Mara tucked the kids in and sat on the couch grading art projects. Around midnight, she felt pressure. Not in her belly, but in the air, as though the room inhaled. The lampshade quivered. The curtains shifted, though the windows were sealed. She whispered, "Who's there?" The reply was a soft, human-paced exhale that moved behind her chair. The lamp flickered once, and the room fell silent, until a single floorboard in the hall released a polite answering pop. Mara's next appointment came sooner than planned. Dr. Klein met her with a polite smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You've gained almost 8 pounds in 2 weeks, she said quietly, scrolling through the scan results. "The growth rate's still ahead. I'd like to monitor you weekly." Mara nodded, though her throat felt tight. "The movements, they're stronger than they should be, right?" Lena hesitated. "It's early. Maybe twins. Maybe just active." Active. The word followed Mara home. By the time she parked, the wind had turned the neighborhood into a soft machine of rustling leaves. The kitchen light was off, but the air felt stirred, the faintest warmth brushing her cheek as she crossed the threshold. She could hear Riley upstairs narrating to his toys, June humming. Normal sounds, living sounds. Then beneath them, a faint echoing rhythm. A low, uneven wheeze came from the vent beside the pantry. She crouched, hand trembling near the grill. The air coming through wasn't warm. It pulsed, almost steady, then paused between breaths. A sound too deliberate to be plumbing. She stepped back. The vent exhaled once more, harder this time, as if irritated by her distance. That night, Theo found her in the hallway, eyes wide, palm flat against the wall. "You okay?" he asked. "There's someone in the vent," she whispered. Theo knelt, pressed his ear to the metal. "It's air pressure, Mara. The whole system's off balance. I'll call maintenance tomorrow." He kissed her temple. She didn't tell him that she'd heard it whisper her name through that same vent an hour earlier. At dawn, the kettle screeched from the kitchen. Mara rose groggy, the bed damp with sweat. She reached the doorway just as the sound stopped. Steam ghosted the air. The kettle sat perfectly still on an unlit stove. Behind her, a child giggled. Soft, wrong. She turned fast, but the hall was empty. She ran to the kids' room. Both were asleep. June clutched her blanket. Riley snored through his open mouth. But as Mara adjusted the covers, the nightlight flickered, and the blanket beneath her hand rippled once, like breath moving beneath it. Her scream never fully formed, only a gasp, sharp and small. The fabric went still. Theo worked late again that week. Mara tried to fill the hours, grading papers, folding laundry, pretending her house wasn't learning her routine. Each night the noises grew bolder. A low inhale near the windows, a dry rasp when she passed the hall mirror. The air in the nursery smelled faintly of iron. One evening, Riley came down pale and shaking. "Mom," he whispered, "the wall by my bed keeps moving, like it's breathing." She took his hand, trying to sound calm. "Houses make sounds, sweetheart. It's settling." "But it said my name." Mara froze. What did it say exactly? Riley's lip quivered. It said, "Shh, don't wake her." She tucked him between her and June that night, leaving every light on. Still, sleep came only in pieces. Around 3 a.m., a whisper slid through the open doorway. Mara, not from the hall, from above. She looked up. The ceiling bulged once, then deflated. Dust fell in a lazy spiral. Theo wasn't due home until morning. She stared at the plaster until sunrise, praying it would hold. Dr. Klein insisted she rest. "Your blood works fine, but your pulse is racing, and the stress can't help. Let Theo handle the house calls." Mara laughed, short, brittle. "You don't understand. The house is the call." Lena smiled carefully. "If you start hearing or seeing things—" "I'm not," Mara snapped, then softened. "I'm not crazy." "I didn't say that," Lena replied. "But if it gets worse, I'll refer you to someone who can help." When Mara returned home, Theo's truck sat crooked in the driveway, door ajar. Inside, the lights flickered as she stepped in. The vent in the hallway hissed once, like a sigh of relief that she'd returned. Something scraped beneath her feet, slow, deliberate. She backed toward the stairwell, eyes locked on the shadow stretching across the living room floor. It wasn't hers. It wasn't moving with the light. The rasp came again, and the temperature dropped so fast her breath came out white. She whispered, "Please stop." The wall beside her inhaled. By the second week of November, Mara stopped pretending she slept. Her eyes carried the glassy look of someone waiting for permission to collapse. Theo noticed, but every time he tried to stay home, emergency inspections called him away. Frozen pipes, carbon leaks, things that kept him gone until sunrise. Each night without him, the breathing grew stronger. It no longer hid behind walls or vents. It followed her, sometimes from the kitchen doorway, sometimes from just under the bed. Always steady, always patient. She began keeping a flashlight beside her pillow. One night, when the air turned too cold to breathe comfortably, she heard a slow, dragging inhale from the nursery. She rose, bare feet silent on the floorboards, and opened the door. The mobile above June's crib spun, though the air was still. The stuffed animals sat upright, their button eyes glinting in the nightlight glow. And then, between one heartbeat and the next, the mobile stopped. A shape stood behind it. It wasn't tall, it wasn't short. It was wrong, a smudged outline of human shape, as though the dark had folded inward to watch. Mara. The whisper came from the thing's center. The sound carried no breath. She staggered backward, slammed the door, and pressed her weight against it. On the other side, something exhaled long and slow, fogging the cracks around the frame. By morning, there was nothing. No mark, no sound. June slept peacefully, her breath faint and regular. That afternoon, Dr. Klein called with an edge in her tone. "Mara, I got your latest labs. Your hormone levels, they're not normal." "How bad?" "They're not human." Silence followed. Lena caught herself. "I mean, they're irregular. I want you admitted for observation. Tonight." Mara almost laughed. "You think a hospital's safer?" When she hung up, the phone clicked twice, and a man's voice spoke softly through the receiver. "Keep her in the house," he said. "Don't let anyone take her." It wasn't Theo. It wasn't Lena. The line went dead. Theo arrived home early, his face pale. "Mara, a man came by the site asking for me. Said his name was Damon. Said he was an old friend of yours." She shook her head. "I don't know anyone by that name." "He knew about the baby." Her pulse hammered. "What did he want?" "He said we need to stay inside until it's born." That night, Damon's voice came again, this time from the hallway. Mara found him standing in the doorway like a shadow wearing skin, tall, thin, hair too black to reflect light, eyes like bruises that hadn't healed. "I've been trying to reach you," he said softly. "You were chosen." Theo stepped between them. "Get out." But Damon didn't move. His smile was faint, reverent. "It saved me once. Now it's coming through her." He turned to Mara, voice almost tender. "It chose your body because you were strong enough to carry it. You only have to finish what began." Mara backed away, shaking her head. "I don't want it." Damon's expression darkened. "You don't have a choice." The lights died all at once. In the blackness, something inside Mara's chest moved. Not a kick, not a flutter. Something crawling up, pressing against her ribs from within. She screamed, collapsing. Theo lunged toward her, but Damon was already kneeling beside her, whispering in a language that scraped the air raw. The walls trembled with the sound of breathing. Deep, collective, alive. "Stop!" Theo shouted, grabbing Damon's arm. The man turned, eyes glowing faintly from within, voice layered with another tone, lower, ancient. "She belongs to me now." Theo swung the fireplace poker without thinking. It struck Damon's temple with a crack. The body fell, but didn't bleed. It deflated like something hollow giving way to air. And in the silence that followed, Mara arched backward, a scream splitting into two voices at once, hers and something else riding beneath it. The sound was pure hatred, wet and human. The walls swelled outward, paint blistering as if the house itself gasped. Theo dragged Mara toward the door, but every lock clamped shut at once. The vents bellowed hot air, light bulbs burst overhead. Mara's eyes rolled white. Her voice came out as a whisper that wasn't hers. "Stay with me, Theo. It's almost here." Theo shouted her name again and again until the sound drowned beneath the roar of the entity's breath. Then, as suddenly as it began, the house went still. Mara slumped forward, silent. Her stomach was motionless. The air was still thick, but the breathing had stopped. In the corner, Damon's body exhaled one last time, a single satisfied sigh, before collapsing into nothing but dust and ash. The sirens came an hour before dawn. When they found Mara, She was sitting upright on the living room floor, arms wrapped around herself, eyes open but unfocused. Theo kept telling the paramedics, she's breathing, as if saying it might keep her alive. At the hospital, Lena's voice tried to steady him. She delivered a stillborn, she said softly. It was already gone when they arrived. Theo nodded, staring past her to the hallway where orderlies wheeled a covered form away. For 3 days, Mara didn't speak. The machines around her ticked like distant clocks, keeping time for her. When she finally blinked and looked toward the window, she whispered one sentence. It's still in the air. Theo told himself grief makes people strange. He brought her home a week later. The kids were with his sister in Vermont. The house was too quiet without their noise. Mara moved through it like a visitor, touching the walls, pausing by vents, listening. At night, she sat in the nursery rocking chair, staring at the empty crib. Sometimes she hummed, but the tune always ended on a breath that wasn't hers. Theo tried to be patient. He cooked, fixed the wiring, replaced the burnt bulbs. He even sealed the vents with tape. It didn't matter. The air still moved on its own schedule. Soft exhale at 3 a.m., slow inhale near dawn. One morning, he woke to find the chair rocking by itself. Mara stood at the window, back rigid. The air is warmer now, she said. It's learning. He wanted to argue, but the word learning stopped him cold. Later that week, she convinced him to take the kids out on the lake. A family reset, she called it. The water was calm, the hills gray with fog. Riley unwrapped a small gift he'd found tucked inside his closet, a red toy truck, shiny and new. Neither of them recognized it. Where'd you get that? Theo asked. Riley shrugged. It was waiting. The boy leaned over the edge of the boat, watching his reflection. The toy slipped from his hand, plunking into the dark water. He giggled, eyes following the ripples until they stilled. Mara turned, heart pounding, watching the reflection settle into perfect stillness until it smiled back at her. The water below exhaled. She snatched Riley away from the rail, clutching him tight. We're going home, she whispered. Behind them, the surface of the lake pulsed once, like lungs drawing their first breath. And that, listeners, is why some things never really die. The body ends, but what it carried remembers the warmth, the sound, the rhythm of breath. And sometimes, it keeps breathing until it finds another home. Listen in the dark. Watch with the lights off. If you ever hear the walls inhale, don't wait for the exhale. Subscribe to Fright Night Vault. New stories every night. And one of them, someday soon, might just be yours.